pretty quick. They were about 1,000-person company when that happened, and it was about a year or two before the IPO, so still pretty early. It was I want to say they were about a $700 million a year business at the time, and we were about a $20 million a year business. It was a really interesting moment. Apparently, there were a few things that lined up. We had a patent that apparently they were a little afraid of. So in that case, John Little, there's some value. We were named in Overture, used to be Yahoo bought Overture, also known as GoTo.com. We were noted in their quarterly reports as one of the top providers.
Lose him? Nope.
I'll take it from here. It was crazy. Are you still there, Eytan? Oh no. Google was listening in and cut out his internet. It's proprietary.
Use Google Meets, not Zoom.
Yeah, that's the takeaway. Oh no. Eytan. I'll text him. Maybe. See if he can. Oh, nope, that wasn't him. Oh no.
Nope.
No, he's definitely gone. I remember him saying that, yeah, it was a little crazy. They basically got him. Google was worried that they were, I think he's probably going to say, like, when they got in there to the M&A meeting or whatever, when they were, they saw on the whiteboard, like from a previous thing, they walked down a hall, that was something like applied semantics, something, you know, like and then they got this sense that like Google was afraid, and they got a much better deal out of them than they probably were shooting for before they saw this little glimpse. He says he's trying to log back on. Okay. Mm-hmm. We'll give him a few minutes. Technical difficulties. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see. We can listen to some more music. More questions. What other questions people want to ask when he gets back? Yeah, no, I mean, oh, you're muted there, Matt, but yeah, he's super impressed. Oh, there we go. Unassigned. Move him to, what room are we in? 2. All right. Coming in. Did it work? Did it work? Yay! Hey-o. Working? Oh, connected audio? Connected. Connected? Oh, there we go.
I'm on my phone. I don't know what happened with the desktop.
No problem. Thanks for coming back. As you were saying, they were afraid, or no?
Google
Was buying.
Okay, so yeah, you know, we got to open the Google Santa Monica office. In some ways, we never really got absorbed into Google's, like, you know, we weren't up at Mountain View, so kind of continued. It was a blur of the applied semantics culture and the Google culture down in Google Santa Monica. And yes, Scopely has been an amazing ride. I actually was there for about 4 years, and then I haven't really been there for the last 6. When I left, we were doing about, it's a mobile gaming company, for those who don't know. We started in 2011. We spent about a year trying to be a Tinder-like app on Facebook, didn't work. We pivoted to mobile games about 12 months in, and we've been mobile games ever since. So I left, we were doing about 35 million. Today we're doing about 900 million. So, I think I'm very, very grateful that my 2 co-founders have continued an amazing journey there. And I remain on the board of directors, obviously, and am very much in touch with the company.
Great.
I have a very simple question. So you said you were working like as a technical analysis. Did you decide you wanted to become an entrepreneur and you sat down and thought of different ideas, or you had AdSense in your head and like approached that?
I think we were, I think about my brother and I, we were just sort of brought up in a family. I mean, to put it for both of my parents were educators. There was almost a feeling like we were pretty middle class. We sort of always felt that we didn't have stuff, things, money. And so there was kind of a constant like a hustler mentality of like, what can we do? What can we make? What can we build? What can we sell? Was just sort of almost ingrained from our dad. He was not an amazing businessman, but he was a very, very hard worker, I would say. And so he just encouraged us no matter what we were doing, whether it was school or new business ideas or work, just to be very focused and diligent about what we were doing.
Thank you.
What else? Thank you, Ahmad. Double A.
What was
squared.
the
Come up.
the pivoting? Did you already talk? I don't know about how applied semantics or Scopely or your other ones got to where they eventually ended up.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Josh. Applied Semantics AdSense was the 5th product we released, and we released it in October of 2000. You can still find a press release for Oingo AdSense back in the year of October 2000. And Oingo is the name of Applied Semantics before we changed the name. We had Yahoo and LookSmart and AltaVista beta tested AdSense, and nobody wanted to pay for it. And so as a product, it sat on a shelf for 2 years. And then we retooled it a little bit, and we got pretty much one customer, USA Today, maybe a couple small customers. So probably less than 5 when we got acquired. But we released 2 other products, 6 and 7 were Domain Park. The most money we actually made from that domain parking product, where you get to a domain name and there was no domain name being used, and you put those little keywords on there that were related. That was actually the product that we made money on, and that was more than 50% of our revenue. So Google bought us for AdSense, but they sort of had to pay us on a multiple of that domain revenue, which was fortunate for us. Yeah, so on that note, I'd say like we were pretty good about not sticking. We were pretty good about trying to go and get our products used very quickly. We would definitely be like, once we had the product, we talked to the top 50 potential customers and we try to hit them up in like a month. And if there just wasn't traction in that month, we just went and did something else. And that literally happened, 8 times in a 4-year period.
Yeah, I think that's key. It's like, just get more shots on goal. The faster you can do stuff, the longer your money, your attention span can last, and the better chance something is.
4 of these 8 products hit. 3 of these 8 products hit $1 million or more run rate in 4 years, and AdSense was not one of them. So, yeah, we found $3 million a year products, added to a $20 million run rate, and an AdSense that looked promising.
And wasn't it like when you went back to AdSense, you kind of tweaked the way
we did the first AdSense. The first AdSense only looked at the search term. So the problem in search back then was all the salespeople would sell keywords, and they'd sell keywords like Mazda or new Mazda or used Mazda, but they didn't sell terms like replace Mazda tires 2001. And so we were good at taking the search term and figuring out the category that this search term fit into and figure out that's an automotive term. We started doing that on the entire web page and not just the search term. And that was the tweak that sort of that was the tweak that sort of enabled Google and everyone else to put ads not just on google.com, but on every other web page.
Thanks, Eytan, for all the ads.
People often ask me, they say, aren't you upset that you sold a company that now does tens of billions of dollars and you didn't get tens of billions of dollars? And my answer always is, no way in hell am I upset, because it's so easy to F up a company. And we were competing with Google. I mean, we were literally up against Google. So it was like, you can beat them or join them. And so we were all very happy to get a small piece in a big cog of Google than having tried to go it alone, which I think would have been a very silly proposition with a very low degree of probability.
Yeah, you can always live to fight another day, too. This doesn't have to be. This isn't your final. This is it.
Right.
All or nothing. You got to beat Google.
Yeah, it was not even back then, it was not a fight that we ever wanted to choose. I mean, what's kind of crazy is back in 1999, 4 years before this, we were thinking of being a search engine. And even back in 99, way before Google was even the #1 search engine, we were already afraid enough of Google to think, we don't want to be doing anything that Google is doing. They're just too good of a company. And they're going to beat anybody at whatever they want to do. So when they decided they wanted to do the same thing we were doing, it was kind of an easy choice.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So you have co-founded at least one thing with your brother, and then whoever else has been involved. Another member of my pod is looking for a co-founder, so it's basically just her, but she's not as technical as she would like to be. So she says, I'm looking for a co-founder. So given your experience, like, there's no right answer, but would you have tried to accomplish what you've accomplished if you had to go out and find a co-founder versus having your brother and you already kind of found each other early on? Right? Like, so yeah, what is your view from where you sit on the need for a co-founder, how you go about getting that relationship together? Where do you go to look? How do you interview your co-founder, so to speak?
Yeah.
Where do you place the value on that from a founding perspective? Just because, I have a non-technical co-founder for this thing I'm working on now. I've worked solo a lot. So I think every story is different, but obviously you have yours.
It can be. So as far as where to find a co-founder, I would be a guy who would always, I'm a people person who would go out and really talk to as many people as I could. I'd really get out there and meet people. And still to this day, like as an investor, as an angel investor, it's important to go out and meet as many people as you can. That's, I met my co-founder at Scopely at just like a networking dinner. Someone put a networking together for 12 people, and it was one of those ones where everyone at the beginning of the night, like, I didn't know a single person at the table except for the host who invited me. And, everyone went around in a circle and talked for 2 minutes. And me and one guy ended up talking to each other after the dinner for an hour. And that became my co-founder in Scopely. Like, you never know where you're going to meet someone and have more conversations. And how do you figure out what the equity breakdown should be? That's art. That's art and science.
But you and your Scopely co-founder, who I don't know if we know who that is, but were you both established as entrepreneurial, successful, reasonably seasoned versus, the person I'm mentioning in our group, Nico, if anybody else is in our group.
Yeah.
She's like, it's just me. She's a sophomore at CMC in college. So she doesn't have any of that background, history. So what, like, if you didn't have your brother, would you have tried to do the same thing for your first, for early on, like your first big outing?
In some ways, I don't know if I would have. I remember at the time I was thinking between two companies. The sort of the trust and desire to sort of two brothers seemed like a little more formidable. My co-founder Scopely had not done a great deal. He was 26 years old. He had built one company that wasn't even really in existence anymore. He never even really had a job. Crazy. He literally never had a real job. And somehow at age 26, he'd been out of school for 4 or 5 years and had never worked for an actual company. I mean, you could almost have looked at his resume and thought he was like a wanderer, you know? But, you know, you spend a couple of months with someone, you start working on ideas, you start watching their brain work, you start seeing that they don't leave the office until 1 or 2 in the morning, and they figure out how to make each day better than the next, and it kind of comes together, right? You put yourself in a room with Nico, work with him on a project or two, you know, on an investor deck.
Officially.
Pick a project. Maybe it's an investor deck. Maybe it's some wireframes.
Sure.
Maybe it's a marketing strategy. Maybe it's a Facebook ad to go and buy customers. Like, pick a project, watch her brain, see how much she wants to be involved, and then you got to negotiate a little bit.
Well, I mean, I told her you're right. She's probably doing a 3-2, so she'll be at Mud, or I don't know. You're familiar with Claremont colleges, right? So.
Yeah.
So I said, you know, clearly classmates are a good place to search, or maybe she goes it alone. So but yeah, I don't think there's one right answer, which I think people kind of get stuck in this, like, oh, okay, they did it, so therefore we'll go that way. I think I mean, my family is very entrepreneurial. So kind of like you know, we got a lot of encouragement, my sister and I. So there's a lot of factors I think that you can't just put on a slide.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true. On that note, someone could have a perfect Ivy League resume. I sometimes watch out for the management consultants. No offense, I'm sure there's somebody on this line, but they talk. Those guys are good at talking game. Some of them really succeed, and then I've had so I don't know. It's about finding your fit. I like, you know, smart grinders tend to be good. You know, smart grinder. I tend to look for that. A smart grinder.
Yeah, I get that same feeling on the the management, the business consulting. Yeah, there's some difference of people sort of playing the game, like they know they're playing the game or something, as a like startup entrepreneur.
Yeah.
As opposed to, no, I just have this idea, or I just got to fix this problem, or I just want to get like rich and help people or something like that. But they're different. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Ethan, Ibrahim again. You mentioned you were very open to talking to young potential entrepreneurs and so on and so forth. What would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Send me an email. It's first name, last name, EYTAN ELBAZ, Eytan Elbaz @gmail. And look, I'll do my best to get back to you. If I don't for some reason, please don't. You can try to hit me up again, or I'll do my. You know, I love to help as many people as I can. Sometimes I don't have the answer. Sometimes I got busy at that moment. So please don't take personal offense if I don't give you a very diligent response back.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll follow up, and I'll be as much of a kind pest as possible.
Ronnie, did you?
Yeah, just
wanna say something?
really quick. I think like as founders and the fact that you have a founding team, you'd like to think that you can go it alone. You have all the expertise you need. But what is your take on if you know you have a task that maybe doesn't take very long? Would you recommend hiring like a one-off consultant as opposed to committing to a full-time employee for those kind of tasks? Or is it just that's not advisable because it, has some of the information of your company and some of the expertise is just no longer, within the company?
So it obviously depends on the scope of the project, but I've had some relationships with people I've met on Upwork for years and years. I had at least 2 different people I worked with on Upwork for more than 5 years on an ongoing, almost daily relationship. Like, yeah, it's an amazing resource, Upwork and Fiverr, and so yeah, outsource away. It's kind of nice not always making someone an employee. That said, if it's core technology, it's rare that someone out there builds something that's meaningful and valuable. I think that's much harder. The one exception, I've heard that the guys at Grindr outsourced the whole thing and got lucky, but that's the exception to the rule. I think it usually doesn't happen.
Thanks.
John, you're muted.
Okay. I guess a kind of related question. There's this music visualizer that's online, and it takes a song from Spotify and it puts frankly, a crappy visual. Like the visual itself, I don't like, but the whole web app is great and I like it. And I kind of want to contact the guy, get the source code, ask a couple questions like, hey, how might you suggest, tinkering it with, what are the best ways to tinker it with this and that button, and then taking it on my own, right? Like, I don't have any money to offer him, but it seems like the fastest way to get the thing that I want,
Yeah. Okay. So here, I think there's different kinds of people. There are some people in this world who are yes and, like, yes, I want my project to keep going. Yes, I want my project to be better. Yes, I'm open to sharing this with you. And some people are just no and closed, like, no, this is my baby. No, this is my thing. No, I'm worried about what you might do to it. No, I don't want to give you control. And write your best, most friendly letter introducing yourself. A little humble bragging goes a long way. Like, talk about the two best things about you in your life and why you're what you visualize, and ask them for it. And it's pretty, don't overthink that. Like, if he's into it, you'll get a response real quick, and if he's not, he's probably a no guy. So
yeah, okay.
His personality on that. You can always offer him, like, if this goes really well and we use your code and ta-da-da-da-da,
right,
then you'll get this incentive at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay.
And don't give away 10% of your company for it.
No, sorry. And that I'm getting 10% patent ownership. I'm getting 10% patent ownership.
Yeah.
Their patent ownership, they're
Okay.
right. One company's going to hold the patent. The other company's going to hold the startup. Startup gets exclusive rights, and that may change depending. And they get a little equity. It's not that bad. It's not.
Okay. You're not giving away 10% of the company for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I'm not a complete fool. Thank you.
A friend of mine just raised money for an online veterinarian company. He raised $14 million. And the day before he was like buying out at someone else's veterinarian company. And he was like, we're going to do a 70-30 deal with these guys. We'll get 70%, they'll get 30%. And I was going through the whole thing with it. I'm like, what are they actually contributing? He's like, well, I was like, no, I don't understand anything you've said that they're actually giving you anything. It just sounds like you're pivoting to a veterinarian company because these three people are, and they might hang around the hoop. I was like, I don't think you should give them 30%. I just think you should give them 3%. And he actually went back and did it. And he saved himself 27% equity.
It is funny. Like, I think in most negotiations, it's all about your leverage, right? Like it is like, it's like, who needs it more, or do you have options and they don't have options? And it's just about not screwing up so badly that you don't get the market price, right? There'd be some market price and you just want to, like, it's hard to go out and just negotiate your way to selling your home for 50% more than it's worth, I mean,
right.
You could be really bad and sell your home for 50% less than it's worth, but so But sometimes there are these things where it's so unclear. It's such an illiquid market, or it's such a weird thing. There's no comps, and you
Yeah.
kind of have leverage, but they kind of have leverage, and it is totally like this weird, like they could get 80% of the company, or they could get 3% of the company.
Yep, it's that gray. It's really that gray.
Yeah, you could totally see the argument either way. That like, well, we have all the veterinarian expertise you need.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. But yeah, that's why it's good to start really on your side. You know, like
Yes.
start at 3%.
In the beginning, keep as much of the cap table as possible. You know, there's plenty of opportunities to dilute yourself along the way.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about ending up with too much of your company.
Yes, it never happens. It never happens. You know, at Scopely, we're still a private company. Not one of the single 4 co-founders owns double-digit equity anymore, right? So
Owns what equity? Sorry.
nobody has double-digit equity anymore, and we're still a private company.
All right. Did you guys start out as pretty even, or was it like, you know, one of you was a little bit less involved, or how did that original go?
It wasn't perfectly even, but you know, it was a fair cap table. But you know, the 4 of us started off with 100% of the company, so
Yeah.
and we've collectively given away like 75% of it, maybe getting closer to 80. Maybe I think even I think we've given away more than 80% of the company now. So yeah,
That's pretty generous.
we've had like 5 rounds of funding, or 6, I don't know, it's something like that.
Is that common? I think a lot of the stuff I hear about, you know, you get Series A, you know, seed A, B, and it's like, I feel like I don't hear about anything that gets more than that. Maybe a couple to get to Series C.
No, we're well beyond that. We're actually on to like our 6th round of funding or something, and every time it's been 20 to 30% every time. So
I think it's been more common to have more and more private rounds because it's sort of more onerous to IPO, and I mean, yeah, it's not common in terms of most companies don't make it to that 4th round of funding or whatever. They fail before then, or they maybe get acquired or something. Like, but basically they're not successful. But yeah, if you're a successful company that's maybe going to IPO or something, you probably had 6 rounds of private funding, unless you just got super profitable really early and never wanted to take more, I guess. How many rounds do you know, Eytan, that Google do before their IPO? Do you have any back then?
don't know offhand. I don't know.
Yeah, because they were starting to make pretty good money there by the 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah. Cool. What else? What else? Any other good stories? I'm trying to think. Any other good stories. Is everybody still? I'm now my phone, but I think, is everybody still here? Yeah, everybody's still here. All right.
Rapt attention.
So many different things going on.
You still gonna
Hi.
start any more companies? Oh, did someone say? Desmond?
I have a company I want to start, but I have no time. I'm dying. There's this company, an idea I love. I just can't get to it. I guess sometimes that happens.
Sort of along the lines. So I'm assuming you are a hands-on coder at some point in your life cycle of developing a company. You're hacking on AdSense. Pardon me. That's back then.
Actually, no. I had one coding job after college, and I never coded again.
So my question was going to be: at what point in your growth and do you sort of not have your hands on everything?
Yeah.
I have in my travels. I worked with Dan Allen, who was Dan at Apple. So he had been at Apple for a while. He interviewed at Microsoft to be like their Mac developer principal, and Bill Gates was part of the interview, and he came in and coded with him and stuff. He's like,
Bill Gates was at the Apple interview?
no. He was going to go to Microsoft. Sorry, he was going to leave Apple to go to Microsoft to be their Apple principal. So, Bill Gates was still coding and interviewing this guy, like sitting down with him at a keyboard. So
What year was that? How long into the company?
This was, I'm going to say it was like 95-ish.
Whoa, that's late.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It was during the Power Mac thing. So whenever that was, somewhere in 95.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just shocked me. But on the other hand, I think it's cool that the CEO or anybody who's in the founder / upper deck is still hands-on or still has that awareness of what their company's doing or how it works. So
well, it certainly worked out for him.
Yeah.
Did that coder change? Did he go to Microsoft?
Yeah, he was, Dan Allen was, I wouldn't say he was a coder. He was kind of the guy. I mean, he was Dan at Apple. He had been at Apple forever. He was one of the principal developers of MaxBug, like really low level, hands-on, super Mac hacker. And he went to Microsoft to do that for them, for their Apple products. So yeah, he was a little bit more than a coder, but he came and told us.
I think maybe Gates was trying to lead by example.
Well, absolutely. But I remember when Dan came and told us, he said, well, they said, what would it take? And I told them, and they gave it to me. So what am I going to do? They delivered. So because that was very it was Apple versus Microsoft. It was very contentious, but that was one of those, I was young at the time, no longer, but it was one of those moments you're like, wow, that's not what I would have expected. And to hear that Gates was in there hacking away on the, like, hey, how would you do this? Kind of literally, let's do some coding. It's kind of interesting.
It really is with programming. I mean, you get so much leverage that literally, I mean, you could more or less, it doesn't have that much, but well, at Dreamhouse, all four of us were programmers. So like, we didn't actually hire a developer. I think the first like 7 years or something, because it was just like, can't think of more stuff. Like we already have too many developers. So we were still like programming a lot. That's not the only way to do it, obviously, and not necessarily a good way, but it just didn't really make sense. It wasn't what we were missing. We were probably missing like marketing people. We were missing like business sense, but we were not missing like developers. So yeah,
So maybe the question more generically is like, what is it practical to try to stay connected at that level, whether you're hands on a keyboard or at least that, aware, or do you just cede control to your, middle and lower management levels? And whatnot? Do you just say, oh, I got to be the founder and continue to do the handshakes and the money raising? I tend to be like, I kind of want to know what's going on. So I don't know if that would do me at some point, or is it, obviously it probably depends, but.
I get it. My take on that is that, well, from the talk, that part about like, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. And that's like, I'm sure what Bill Gates was like, I want to make sure this guy really knows what he's talking about. I'm going to be on this interview, or I still got to get in there to code. And that can be fine but you have to recognize that you're doing that, and that maybe that's not necessary for certain things, or it's not always true. There are people besides yourself who can do things right in the world. It's just hard to,
I don't know.
It might not be the way you would do it, or, but if it is something like Bill Gates, probably one of the, I don't know what number, but he's in the top 1%, I assume of coders in the world, that it's like, he probably is going to have a hard time finding someone who's going to do it better than him. And if it's a real critical thing, I don't know, and he probably still enjoys it and all that stuff. But I don't know. What do you think, Eytan? How did you go from? Well, where's your role? Like, how did you guys divide things up between you and Gil? And did your other co-founders, or you didn't have other co-founders at Applied Semantics? It was just you two, or you had?
We had another, yeah.
Okay.
Before. Yeah. So, well, actually, technically speaking, I would have been considered having founding equity, right? Founding vice president. So there from day one, yeah. So we'd call Adam and Gil the founders, and then me and Ari were founding vice president. I think everybody did whatever they knew how to do, and they would just do as much as they could. Like, we gave a lot of trust to each other and just try and go and accomplish whatever we can. And we just started trying to hire intelligent people along the way. And, yeah, there was no, I can't think of a time where we really broke. Maybe we sit in meetings and talk about things that needed to get done and put a name by them. That was the extent of breakdown of responsibilities.
And then how did, like, as it grew, or did you get acquired by Google sort of before? Like, how many employees did you guys have when you got hired by Google, and how had your role changed from at that point?
Google was all about sticking us into departments and groups like where we actually belonged, right? So I think I felt like I wore like a 75% business development hat and a 25% product manager hat. But, you'd get there and be like, I mean, that wasn't flying, right? You're either a business development guy or a product manager. So, we quickly fell into line of whatever org structure they thought we'd best fit into.
Okay, so before the acquisition, though, you were doing like 75% biz dev, 25% product, you felt like?
Yeah, probably more like 60-40 product early on. At one point we actually hired a product manager right in the last few months, so I got to step back from that, but I pretty much had that role for a few years.
I have an anecdote, I guess. One of my colleagues from Intel found it. He was a hands-on coding, a lot of experience, medical devices and whatnot. Formed a company in Ireland. So he was the technical co-founder, I guess CTO probably. And they had a non-technical CEO to do the business development and the handshakes and whatnot. And they had to switch roles because he said it's probably about 2 years in, that because the non-technical person could not talk about LoRa and firmware and the boards they were designing. So they had products, they had deals with Vodafone and whatnot, but because you couldn't talk the talk, I guess they were missing out. So they switched, and they went out and got acquired by Taoglass and all this stuff. So yeah, I guess it absolutely depends, as always. But yeah, I would want to know what's going on. So I would probably be not hands-on like micromanaging, but definitely aware. Like, I would always want to be able to build the product if it was software, for example, no matter what. Okay, cool. Thanks.
I do have to jump, but hit me up on email if you guys have any other questions. I already see Ibrahim. You're hitting me in a soft spot because my family is Moroccan, and I guess you have an idea for Moroccan mint tea. And my family's Moroccan.
So you're Moroccan?
What's that? My father's Moroccan.
I spoke Arabic on instinct. That was my apologies.
Well, so my father's Moroccan Jewish, so he would speak Arabic, but I don't.
Oh. Okay, then your father and I would get along. I would love to. I know I'm sorry if I'm like putting you on the spot in this small group, but
I'm going to keep going because Moroccan mint tea was a staple in my household, and now I have it growing in my garden. I've got all my Moroccan mint right there.
Let me show you my stash.
Making connections. I used to live in Tunisia.
I'm good. That's from Morocco.
Oh yeah. Now you could put that in little baggies and sell it for $40.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about the baggies, but I want to do more so the actually tea making. And where's?
Yeah.
Oh, there she is.
Wow.
And
nice.
So, Ibrahim. Yeah. I know who to introduce you to already. I already got this.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna intro you. I'm gonna introduce you. There's a company. There's a friend of mine who's literally doing a beverage incubator, and he's got a beverage incubator, and he's got a whole production manufacturing line. So I'm gonna put us all in one thread.
Please, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Because the bottleneck I have is like I said in email, it's not demand, it's supply.
Cool.
And there's like I went to like a whole experience with it. But yeah, we could talk about that later on.
Guys, I gotta jump.
Thanks, Eytan.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for hanging out. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah.